One of my family's favorite comfort foods is baked ziti. It's hard to go wrong when it comes to pasta, sauce, and cheese, but I wanted to make an extra special version today, so I substituted some of the standard ingredients and took some extra steps. With multiple fondants, bechamel sauce, and some extra time and attention, we're gonna make something really yummy. Don't know what a fond is or why I'm excited about it? Visit my website for some answers and exact ingredients to this recipe. All right, that's enough talking. Let's get cooking. To make this process a little easier on myself, I'm prepping all the ingredients before I get started with the sauce. This process is called mise en place. It may take a little longer overall, but it makes the cooking process much less stressful and it helps to keep you organized. I'm doing a rough chop of the onions, garlic, and mushrooms before I get started with the meat. As you can see, I'm removing the casing from the sausages and pulling them apart to make little meatballs. Whenever you're browning meat that's going to be cooked for a long time, there's a trade-off between flavor and tenderness. More seared surface area equals more flavor, but if you sear all of the meat on all sides, you'll end up with a less tender final product. What we're going to do is sear one side of the meatballs over medium-high heat, then break them up into smaller bits before removing them from the pot. That way, you get the best of both worlds. Without draining the pot, we're adding the pancetta, letting that crisp up, and now we've made our first fond. Remove the Banchetta and reduce the heat to medium. Then add onions and a bit of salt to release the water in them. That will be enough liquid to scrape up the fond. Let the onions soften and take on a light golden color. Then add the mushrooms. You want the mushrooms to release all their water and start sticking to the bottom of the pan before adding the garlic and dry spices. I'm using onion powder, garlic powder, red pepper flakes, dried thyme, and dried oregano. Let all that cook for about another minute or so before adding your tomato paste. Yes, I'm using the whole tube here. Now we're going to cook the paste until it gets to a darker red brick color. The caramelization of the tomato paste is called pinçage, and it's another way to add flavor to a savory dish. Once the paste is dark enough, we're going to add about a cup of red wine to deglaze the mushroom and tomato paste fond that's developed. Let the wine cook off for about a minute, then add whole peeled San Marzano tomatoes, as well as the sausage and pancetta, and any accumulated juices. Give everything a light crush with a potato masher, then bring this to a simmer. Set your heat to low, and keep this on a low simmer for at least 90 minutes. But really, you can take this about as long as you want. My sauce went for around 3 hours. A couple things I forgot before I transferred this over to the stovetop was a bouquet garnier, which is really just a fancy word for some herbs tied together, and some rinds from Parmigiano Reggiano that I was keeping in my freezer. Now that our sauce is on the simmer, it's time to make the bechamel. First, melt your butter over medium heat, then add an equal amount of flour to the pan. Cook that butter-flour mixture until the raw flavor of the flour is taken out, and it starts to smell a little nutty. About 4 minutes. Now turn off your burner and add cold milk. First, splash in about a cup and whisk together until fully incorporated. The mixture will thicken very quickly, which is normal. Next, add a couple more cups and whisk until the sauce is smooth. Now you can add the rest of the milk and whisk without any worry of a lumpy sauce. Now, the next part is up to you. This sauce can go on medium-low heat and thicken. This lowers the chance of burning, but will take a long time, upwards of 40 minutes. Or you can keep the heat higher and make it more quickly. This does have an increased chance of burning, so you want to keep the sauce moving pretty much constantly in that case. If you start to feel some buildup at the bottom of the pan after more than a minute or two of cooking, don't scrape it up. This is not the kind of burn bits that you want in your sauce. Just stir without disturbing the bottom, and you'll still have a nice creamy sauce. Once it's thickened and looks like this, remove it from heat, add nutmeg, cayenne, salt, and pepper, and your cheeses. I'm using provolone and Parmesan. Don't forget to taste and adjust the seasoning if needed, and set aside once you're happy with the sauce. Our final component, the pasta, is actually rigatoni. Ziti's smooth and doesn't hold sauce as well as rigatoni, which has ridges on the exterior. So I guess technically this is Ziti-less baked ziti. Check the package instructions before you add the pasta. You only want this cooked halfway to al dente. So since this calls for 11 minutes, I'm going to cook it for just 5 in heavily salted water before straining and adding it to the sauce. Now it's time for assembly. As comforting as a nice big bowl of baked ziti is, it has a tendency to be one-dimensional, with each bite tasting more or less the same. That's why, instead of mixing everything together before adding it to the pan, I'm making layers, starting with half the pasta and sauce, then the bechamel, then half of our mozzarella. One more layer of pasta, sauce, bechamel, and mozzarella, then we're topping off with some Parmigiano Reggiano. If you're worried about that much cheese, just tell yourself you're going to the gym an extra time this week. Now, you can see that our 9x13 pan is brimming with deliciousness, so do yourself a favor and add a cookie sheet to the rack below the pan to keep from having to clean the bottom of your oven. Cover with tinfoil and put it into a 350-degree oven for about 30 minutes, after which you can remove the foil and bake for another 15 minutes. If the cheese on top still isn't brown enough, you can throw it in the broiler to get it where you want. Just make sure your baking dish is rated for high heat. Once you're happy with the caramelization of the top layer of cheese, it's time to take it out of the oven and tuck into one of the best pasta dishes you'll make this year. All right, are you ready? I'm ready. It's good. If you like this type of recipe, please take a quick second, subscribe to the channel, like the video.